Thank you very much indeed for the warm welcome, and thank you for inviting me to this wonderful symposium. It's really a pleasure to be here. And I think the work that HDR UK and this alliance is doing is just crucial and really emblematic of a lot of the issues facing the research and innovation system at the moment. And I think there are two things I would really like to highlight that HDR UK is key to delivering in a really high quality research and innovation system that successfully links in a really embedded network research, discovery to public good. And those two things are data and collaboration. And whilst I think that's probably a very uncontroversial statement, I think it's really worth remembering that both of those things are just transformed compared to how they were, for example, when I started my research career. I'm still pretending that I'm quite young, and it wasn't that long ago that I started my research career. But for example, when I was starting, if you wanted to get a copy of somebody's research paper, and that's effectively what data sharing was in those days, you walked to the library, you took the physical journal off the shelf, you put it on the photocopier, and you pressed the button, and you got a rather scrappy copy. And if you wanted a better copy, you could request a reprint from them. So when you published your paper, you ordered a big stack of lovely shiny reprints from the journal with all the nice color pictures, and you put them in your office in a pile. And then people sent you these little cards saying, please can I have a reprint of your paper, blah, 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 with their address in the corner. And you cut it out and you put one of the reprints in the envelope and you stuck their address onto the envelope and you posted it to them. And that was data sharing at the start of my career. And that was really, honestly, not that long ago. So the extraordinary rate of change of how things work and how we can collaborate and the opportunities is kind of breathtaking. And so it's not really surprising that we are running very hard to keep up, and that rate of change continues apace, both in terms of the way in which we can collect data, the way in which those data can be stored and curated, how those data can be linked and shared, and the extraordinary rate of development of the analytical tools that we can use to extract understanding and meaning from those data. And this in the week when DeepMind have announced extraordinary progress in solving protein structure based on the protein sequence data that we have such a lot of. So just amazing rate of change, amazing opportunities, and a huge challenge to make the most of those opportunities. And so I think for me, in addressing that challenge, there are three things I would like to say a tiny bit about each. And the first is the issues around data quality and curation. The second, the data connectivity. And the third, crucially, how we can ensure the equitable distribution of the costs and benefits of all of these processes in delivering that public good that's so important. And I think, as with so much in our society, concerns or issues or energy around all of those three areas has been really highlighted and amplified by the pandemic. And the pandemic has also provided an opportunity to reset the system in a better way as we move forward. And I think that HDR UK and this alliance is in a really fantastic position to contribute to those efforts. So just very quick word on each of those things. I think on data quality, we can see that particularly in a complex domain like health, there will always be compromises in the quality of health data. And the way and the many different ways, the many different types of data and the environments in which they're collected means we will never be able to get perfect data. Nonetheless, we have to work harder, I think, to ensure that the quality of the data we have and the extent to which it represents fully the communities, the relevant communities of interest is really important. And there are a whole range of issues to do with that kind of representational bias that I think are relevant, and they include not only how we collect and curate that data, who is involved in all of those processes, including the analysis, but also the key research challenge of devising analytical tools that can deal with patchy, incomplete, imperfect, biased data sets. And we mustn't forget that last point, because I think that's a really important tool in our box, given that it's important to be pragmatic about the extent to which one can collect the perfect data set and doesn't want some poor patient sitting there being interviewed for an hour by some healthcare practitioner about all the things that we would really ideally like to know in some standard ontology. So data quality, super important, and the representativeness of the data and the people and the tools that we use to analyze those data, key. Broader kind of connectivity issues and the kind of many infrastructures in terms of hardware, software, people that are required to drive high quality connectivity, really important. And I think the challenge we face there is that a lot of that work is in some ways invisible. And again, the needs move very, very quickly, and it's expensive. And all of those things make it quite a challenge for funders, particularly, to think carefully and properly about how to invest in the continual upgrading needed to all of those things. Next year, there will always be a better computer, so why do I buy one this year? So how you put in place a really high quality strategy that takes into account the continuous need to invest in these kind of invisible infrastructures, I think is a really difficult challenge, and anything your Alliance can do to help us think about that would be much appreciated. And then lastly, just a couple of things about the key centrality of ensuring that this extraordinary revolution and the opportunities that come with it involve really careful thinking about the equitable distribution of the benefits and the potential costs or harms that go with it. This is a really tricky area, and in the health area particularly so, because of the huge sensitivities around health data in the context of privacy and confidentiality, but also in the context of the extraordinary benefits that the effective and responsible use of health data can bring. And I think, I've worked on quite a lot of data-related projects over the last decade or so, including with the Nuffield Council on Bioethics and the Royal Society and the British Academy. And those projects have made me very alert to the extraordinary sensitivities around health data. And I think it's key that we address those and engage with those sensitivities, but not in a knee-jerk way that results in a kind of hyper-cautious, hyper-insulatory response, which I have heard quite often over that last decade. And I like the Caldecott review quote that the duty to share information can be as important as the duty to protect patient confidentiality. And all of the public engagement work I've ever seen demonstrate the real enthusiasm of people and of in their role as patients and otherwise to share their data where it is clear that the benefits and the costs are distributed in a way that match their values. And I think again, organisations like the HDR UK Alliance can be key in promoting those values and therefore embedding in the system a really high quality and trusted environment where people can donate their data to the public good, which I think all the evidence suggests people are really keen to do. And here again, I think the pandemic has provided all kinds of rather interesting opportunities. To start with, it has really driven high up the public agenda the whole notion of high quality data in this space. You get, people standing up in a whole variety of high profile positions demanding to see the data, which is something one would never have expected, however long ago. We have had a very clear indication that the data and its interpretation are key. We have seen the process of science live on television as we've gone from we don't have the data, so we don't know. We have some data, so we're guessing this. We have more data, so we can more confidently predict that. That evolutionary process and how data feed into the iterative cycle of research and is just wonderful to see in the public domain. And the challenge and the alternative interpretations writ equally large. And I think that new understanding of the importance of data and its power, but also its limitations, is something to take away as a message as we move forward in that deep public engagement that Caroline highlighted as crucial in this space, and to develop and to build on from the way in which really impressive use of data has been so evident in the pandemic, to use that as a platform to build this really high quality research data alliance as you are, with deep public engagement, so that we can achieve that ultimate goal of connecting discovery to public good, which everybody can completely get behind. So I'm really delighted to be able to contribute to this extraordinary effort, and I wish you a very successful day discussing these really key issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ottoline. Really, really interesting, and you covered so many topics and things in there. May I just ask one very quick question and things, which is around, so you kind of bring the theme today is around all of us together. The kind of the skills and the capabilities needed to do that kind of that kind of transformation, the evolution and transformation you kind of described there. What are your thoughts in terms of how we should be thinking about that?
Absolutely. So it's one of the things that I like to emphasize when people talk about infrastructure. I think there are two sorts of infrastructure. We tend to think of it as the hard stuff, I mean the physical stuff, although actually, when you're talking about data, yeah, even that's a little bit questionable. But I'm very keen on this concept of social infrastructure, which a colleague of mine, Andrew Millar, introduced me to the term, and it kind of refers to the structures and organizations and systems that you need to ensure that the right people are brought together in the right combinations in the right way, and that includes that the right people come into the system in the first place. So all of those engagement and training activities, all of those interesting career paths that we need to weave together. And I think, as you highlighted in your introduction, in the context of data, this is particularly interesting and exciting, because that your work is so much at the hub in the way the whole system works, that not only do you need that right diversity of skills and people sitting in that hub doing the dealing with the data, you also need those incredible interfaces right across with all your key stakeholders, from all across the healthcare and the policy system, and out into the patient groups and more wider society. So I think your work is kind of emblematic of the need, yes, for physical infrastructure, but crucially for this deeply interconnected social infrastructure that builds those alliances that you need to make it work.